Star Wars. My name is Colin.
I'm also Josh.
Star.
And another Josh.
There you go. What's up, everybody? We have a decent amount of news. First, we will break down episode 10 of The Bad Batch and the Temple of Doom. I mean, episode 10. And then we have Mando season 4 news. We have Star Wars Celebration news. We have Mandalorian season 3 hype for next week. I mean, there is so much to be hyped about in the Star Wars universe. Let's break it down. The Josh on the bottom, take it away.
So basically, we open up on the town that we left off on in the last episode. We have the Bad Batch basically fixing a old speeder bike that's run down. What did you guys think of this opening for the second half of this episode? I know it's not as grand and spectacular until we get a little bit more into the episode, but what do you think of having our Bad Batch again arguing when we meet up with them again?
It was nice. It's interesting how this almost feels. If this again feels like another two-parter right after our mid-season two-parter, where kind of more of the other episodes felt really disconnected, like their own separate mission. So this was fun to kind of see a two-parter that wasn't like very strictly trying to be one. Like they still have two very concise stories, but they really work harmoniously well together. So that was very interesting to see that transition.
Yeah, I also liked how they're working on this like horrible bike, and I love how all three of them are just like descended on like one tiny speeder bike. I thought that was a really funny scene, like just tearing it apart, and yeah, I liked it. I liked that as an opening. It was like different.
Yeah, it's definitely different comparatively to the other openings we've had. What do you think?
And Omega's just off in the corner on her phone.
I love that kind of the old West type feel of the whole town that they were in, and I love how Omega has that power of connection where like she connects to things easier than the rest of the group, because she was like, wait, why don't we try and track Gonki instead of the ship? And it's because she had more of a relationship with Gonki than the rest of the group. And I think and the other people in the Bad Batch don't really have that connection. So I think that kind of really puts her the perspective of Omega in the group, like that, like she can connect to things a lot easier than the rest of the group. I just repeated myself a bunch of times, but yes.
All right, so continuing on with the episode, we also pick up with the mysterious person who has stolen the ship. They are taking it back to their little home base. As you see the ship come down, I mean, Gonki saying stuff, and we know that this episode is going to revolve around getting, well, at least tracking Gonki, I believe. The ship like ends up going down, and my first things, like, it was funny. This was our first beginning of like, wow, that's Indiana Jones right there, which was pretty funny. Seeing all the red against this little rope bridge that goes across. So I thought that was cool. So what do you guys think of this little home base that they have?
I thought it was kind of funny. The first thing I thought, it was like, wow, that kid is really good pilot. Like he missed all of those conjoining bridges as he just like descended right down there. Like they sent out their pilot to go looking for things. Like he's quite good at that.
Yeah, I liked the hanger design. I liked the kind of book flap opening hanger that perfectly closed. Like it reminded like when I'm closing a garage door and I'm like pulling a car that's just too big in the parking garage, and so it's like watching the garage door and making sure it doesn't like snag the bumper. Like I felt that way when the wings were going in. I was like, I feel like it's just gonna snap. It was so close. It was a fun design.
Again, I'm gonna bring Indiana Jones into this, but I got a lot of Indiana Jones vibe from this episode. For example, there was the rope bridge. There were also the kids that kind of felt like, to me, it kind of felt like they were only there to survived to get rations and food and everything, and that's very similar to what happened in the Temple of Doom. And the main villain was very similar to the villain in Temple of Doom. So I again, I love all the Indiana Jones references, not because I'm very for the new Indiana Jones film and I'm just an Indiana Jones fanatic, but because they are putting it in there and it's very obvious now. And I think it's just to kind of hype everyone up for the Dial of Destiny. And I think it's also, to kind of get to maybe bring people more in, like, oh wait, so there's Indiana Jones references. Hang on, I'll go and watch those movies again and maybe hype them up. But I think it's really cool that they're pulling different elements from different projects that Lucasfilm has done into the Bad Batch, and that has happened a lot this season because you have the racing episode, which was a clear reference to American Graffiti. And then you have the actual adventure episode where they go into a temple and you see a lot of different, elements that are pulled from the different Indiana Jones movies. So I love the fact that we're getting more of that, but I want to see Crosshair. I miss Crosshair. I miss Crosshair. I miss Cody. Here's a comment from one of our people that are listening right now. The episode was super mid this week. Absolutely nothing happened. At least last week we saw development in Tech and Omega's relationship. It's about time Crosshair pops back up.
I agree.
Yeah.
We need Crosshair, obviously. Yep. I'm gonna say it. Everybody knows I'm gonna say it. Might as well just get to it now. Yeah. Colin, I'm gonna have to admit, because I haven't admitted to you yet, I've only watched one Indiana Jones movie, so like the references go right over my head. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
So Star will come back next week. Wow. I'm so sorry. That sounds tragic for you.
What childhood did you have without Indiana Jones?
Only Star Wars. Literally, only Star Wars.
Wait, so when you went to Disneyland, did you go on no?
I love that ride.
And when you went to Hollywood Studios, you didn't go to the stunt show either?
No.
Well.
Sorry. I'll have to do it.
Okay.
I don't want to be here anymore.
My heart is shattered. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
And that's all right. That's okay. I'm just slowly dying.
Yeah, so I believe you on the references. I just don't see them. So. Yeah.
Well, there's this crazy thing called the Amazon Prime where you can order things. I would go on there and just order the Blu-ray pack, or if you want, I have extra copies because that's how big of a fan of them.
It's okay. The second one isn't that good anyway. It's fine.
It's
not as good as the first and the third. First and third are great.
Yeah, the first Indiana Jones is great. The third one is great. The second one's mid. Fourth one is it's a stretch.
Raiders is top 3 of all time. Also, they're on Amazon Prime right now for free.
Yes. So
all right.
You don't have an excuse.
Or you can start from the very beginning and watch the Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones. Yeah. And there's I can just see Josh just dying.
I read that book. I read the book about it.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Yeah. And that show's crazy too, because you've got a lot of famous actors in there that weren't famous back then. So you've got Daniel Craig was in there. And you've got the actress who played the mom in the show Wednesday, and she's done other stuff, but that's how I mainly know her. But you've got a lot of like famous people on that show. But anyways, going back to the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Wow. We made it back.
That's not my fault. That was Star's fault. She just opened that can of worms.
Sorry.
Okay. So also another connection to the kids in kind of that whole area. I was really reminded of Corellia at the start of Solo, the Star Wars story, with kind of how the kids in their relationship with Lady Proxima and kind of that whole dynamic of the more you steal, the more you get back. A little bit of Rey in there. Also,
it's interesting seeing how that's like the main go-getter right now in the galaxy. It's like I have all these people that have no jobs or end off like doing their own kind of little thing. I'm going to bring them all together and just steal.
Make them think that they have nothing better to do.
Exactly.
Make them think I'm protecting them and all that jazz. But also, there was one more thing I wanted to bring up with Solo. Oh, I think the character, the I don't know if this is true, but the species that the lead guy is, the lead bad guy with the robotic arm in this episode, forgot his name already. He might be the same species as Moloch in Solo, the guy who like couldn't see the sun because then it like close up around him. Like it looked very similar to like the face design.
Yeah,
so
it did.
Might be another connection to Solo there, but that's might be a stretch. I didn't research that.
I did get a lot of Solo vibes from this episode.
Oh yeah, for real. But yeah, just continue on with the episode a little bit as you guys are talking about. We meet our leader of the group and who our friend is bringing back the ship for. Basically ends up giving this whole speech about like, hey, like this is great, you know, but you know it's probably gonna bring some unwanted attention. You try to do that to me, really? He basically asks for some food. And he's like, we'll get you some food, no problem. It's gonna take a little while. Here's a little water out of my canteen. So the whole vibe you kind of get for it is like, I have all these child soldier or child people under my belt, and I can get them to do whatever I like. So I thought that was interesting.
I really didn't like the kid that was like the thief that was kind of helping them out. I didn't, really fall in love with the character, and not just because he stole the ship, but I just was just like, oh, okay. Because of that. So there's the sisters from season 7, and then they also showed up in the first season of the Bad Batch. I kind of got that vibe from him. I don't know. I didn't really find any of his character that interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys feel about him?
Are you talking about the kid, not the I find it interesting for me because he's got that cool like neck tattoo thing. He's got he looks.
I love that. Why? Because he's got
okay. So if you say like in Solo, in like Rogue One, we have all these people that have tattoos and they mean something. I'm like his character design makes. I want to know what he did, that kind of stuff, or like how he got to this point where he's like, I'm gonna stay here and steal stuff for you, and da 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 da. And I was like, that'd be cool. But I mean, as we said, like we wanted it to deal with something with Hondo, and I was like, that hyped us up a little bit. I'll hype me up at least for next episode, and it wasn't that. So I'm kind of like, hey, I mean, it's interesting, I guess. I wanted to know more about this character, but it ended up just being like a kid. So
yeah,
it is definitely a parallel to the Solo movie. So that was interesting.
I liked the whole like set design, the character design, as always. Like it was really interesting. I loved their tattoos. I'm glad you brought that up, but. Yeah, I mean, his character was just kind of like, I feel like you could probably autofill him with any character, but like his design was cool. I liked his jacket.
Yeah. It's such a big galaxy. I feel like there's only so many different roles someone can take in these stories. Yeah. So he definitely did feel like a fill in the blank type of thing. And hopefully there really was a Chekhov's at the end of possibly seeing him again. So maybe we'll see. And hopefully that character progresses and we see something more to set him apart from the sisters.
Yeah.
That's fair. Continuing on with the episode a little bit, the Bad Batch ends up finding them, or finding him at least. I laughed really hard when he gets clotheslined as he's trying to take away on a speeder. I was like, yeesh. So
I was worried. I was like, oh no, is there going to be a whole chase sequence? Like, what are they going to do? Like, and then it was just like a complete clothesline. That caught me off guard. I loved that. That was hilarious.
I've complimented the show on like having Tech get injured in like the first couple episodes, and like having it felt much more gritty to like characters getting hurt, and these like they felt more real on the damages they were taking, and that kid just gets clotheslined and just gets back up, and I was like, whoa. We've had broken bones in the same season that this kid is like everything just went into one solid force.
He just bounced.
He did.
I did also like how Omega was straight up just like, I'll shoot you. Like, I don't care, bro. I will straight up, man.
Yeah.
Oh geez. Yeah. No, I also liked how she was comparing. I did enjoy the fact that they compared their ship, like as their home, and then he was saying, "Well, I can't go anywhere. Like this is my home," and I think that's how the two, really connected. But I don't know. I just like again, I really didn't fall in love with this character. And I think it might just be
you hate this character.
I don't hate him. I just didn't find him interesting. I was sitting there and I was just waiting for the scenes where I would see, Hunter and Wrecker and Tech. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like this episode wasn't mine.
I think I liked that he allowed Omega a little bit of character development. Like you got to see her, pointing her bow at people and like being part of the team really, like throughout the whole episode. You got to see her kind of pull a little bit more of her weight, which has been a fun thing through this season. And I also liked that the season, like obviously I'm kind of jumping, or not the season, the episode, kind of jumping ahead, but I liked that we actually got a lot more shots of Hunter in this episode, like him fighting and doing more things, and like especially when they go down the exhaust shaft, like which I know is like kind of the next thing. But yeah, I like that we got to see a little bit more Hunter in this episode. That was kind of fun.
I feel like this he was basically like a little tool we're gonna have to be our exposition dump. He's like, yeah, Techno Union used to be here, and it's like, whoa, everyone's like, whoa, and then he's like, yeah, you still can't use your blasters in here because it'll kill everyone. And I was like, all right. So his main thing is just to explain what's going on and give the rules of engagement to the Bad Batch. So I thought that was interesting. So continuing on with the episode, they're basically going off to go get the ship. I actually just wanted to stop to say, like, I really like the shots at night with all like the illuminated glow for the place. Yeah. I thought that was really cool of them trying to get all the way down there. So yeah, and plus like the whole steam thing going on, I was like, ooh, this is really, really cool. What did you think about the animation in this episode?
It was phenomenal. I think with the steam, actual stack, I think Josh was saying there was a reference to it, like
when they're going into it, I really was reminded of Arkham City, Batman Arkham City, the video game, of when it goes down through that to go into the Joker's lair, and then this one going to get the ship. So
yeah, that
was a heavy. But also, I mean, the more I watch this show, the more I think they're using the just some new light or shit, like some new light shader or something, like maybe the one that was used in the Lego movie. I forget what that's called. The one in Toy Story 4, just like some new one, because the highlights that's brought out and like the way the light ambience fills everything. It's the shadows to the light areas looks really, really good this season.
Yeah.
So continuing on, basically we have what, like, do we know what these robots are? Do we know what models these are?
No.
Have we seen these
Mando
robots
bodies.
before?
Commando droid bodies.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah.
Like crystal skull heads.
Again, another Indiana Jones reference. I don't know if it was if they're on their own separate droids and then they just put different heads on them, or because I've never really seen those type of droids.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be commando droids when you first saw the shot of them. I was like, oh, cool. And then I was like, wait.
I think we're supposed to see, I mean, because we haven't seen them fight full out battle droids yet in this season. And I think in the trailers, there was a couple of shots where they were, right? Or am I wrong?
No, all the shots fighting battle droids was the generic P2 grunt clones and Cody and Cross.
Okay, cool. So, all right. Okay.
But those were commando droid bodies. I have it pulled up right now.
Yeah.
Like same amount of fingers, same shoulders, same light on the chest. It's just a new head.
Okay.
Huh. So maybe it's like the B, like maybe it's like a precursor to the commando.
Because I mean, it's something to do with the Techno Union.
Yeah. So maybe it's something that the Techno Union, or maybe a Techno Union specialized commando droid only for certain installations.
Yeah, Yeah, so I mean, continuing on with the episode after we have the little, like, throwing the droid into the giant steam burner piece. We get that one shot of everyone, basically our full Indiana Jones shot of all of these young people pushing across rope bridges to the middle, a bunch of ore, basically. And I was like, wow, I really love this shot. This is really cool. Like, yeah, I think as you were saying, with all the shaders and pieces, I'm like, dang, man, this looks great. So what'd you think of your full-on reference there, Colin, for Indiana Jones?
Man, I would just be more excited if Star actually saw it, but it's fine. No, but I love all of these references, and it's really funny when I'm watching something and I see it, like I'm like, oh wait, like I'm seeing it, maybe I'm crazy, but then you go online and then you see someone else do like a breakdown of the video or something, and that's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. I'm like, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that can see everything about, like Indiana Jones and just different things. So I love that they're bringing different elements from different projects that Lucasfilm has done into these shows. And like George Lucas, has said in the past, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to rhyme. And that's exactly what they're doing by kind of bringing in different elements of all these, incredible TV shows and movies and into the Bad Batch. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, well, continuing on with the episode, we have they basically get up, they need a access code, and it's funny, we're having another split off in this episode of the Bad Batch technically. So Omega goes off with our new friend to go and try and get these codes. And I thought it was the shot of having the leader just chowing down on all the food that basically said that, oh, we don't have food, we're trying to get rations, I'm sorry, da 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 da, and then like just immediately like, yeah, I mean a whole bunch of food.
His arm kept throwing me off because his whole arm was like longer than his other one. So like and then seeing him pick up like a chicken wing, and I was like, oh, okay. Like,
he was eating that stuff fast.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't eaten that fast unless like cramming between exams. It's like the only time I have is for studying. So the only thing I'm like, I gotta eat, I have 30 seconds.
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed. It almost like threw me off for a second. I was just like, why?
I feel like
why
I've
that
seen
fast?
that before, like in like a Robin Hood or something, like some like medieval thing where it's like really trying to emphasize that he's a glutton.
Yeah, and it did feel like, kind of going back to like even the main thief character, like that whole scene with like flat up chicken legs and eating really fast felt like this is very copy paste. We want to tell you to feel a certain way about the villain. We want to like give you all of the signals. This guy's a bad guy, and it felt like, okay, I got the signals. He's eating fast. He has chicken legs. Like, it was.
I'm surprised it was like eating an apple as like dessert, like crunching it like while he was talking. Like, oh, you got me another thief. Thank you, apple.
Yes. That's how it felt.
For me, it reminded me of Denethor from Return of the King of where he's just like sitting there and eating, and then you just see Pippin just towards the side, just in full out, like, he's mad and he's very disgusted by him, and I just got that vibe from the villain in this episode. And then also another Indiana Jones reference is that he is keeping the whole thing about the rations and everything a secret, because he's doing it for his own personal gain, just like the character Mola Ram, where he's not doing it for the thuggy cult, he's doing it for him. He's trying to find all the stones for him, just like how the villain in this episode is keeping all the food to himself because his droids can't eat. And the other kids, he's lying to them and stuff like that. So,
but I mean, we get even more of that, of honed in when we go a little bit further in the episode with having he actually wants to stay and see who the top earner is, because he's like, dude, I brought back a whole ship, man, and he still doesn't ends up getting it, and the only thing that the top earner gets is just like a bowl of soup in comparison. And they're like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of you. And then he just like throws this one bowl of soup in between every single one of the people there, all the miners. So it was pretty interesting.
I don't know how he could have thought he got top earner. Like, the stuff hadn't sold yet. Wouldn't
Drake
think that has made him money? So wouldn't that be like a next month thing for him to contend for top earner? This shit, I don't know. I was like, nothing's sold yet. How would you even be in contention for top earner?
Right.
Interesting.
That's valid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like having him be around to talk to Omega in the next scene, where they're kind of like, at least you have like a home, and she's just basically like, well, as we've been watching all the other episodes, it's kind of like that's been the thing, is that Omega doesn't really have a home, and having all the different Bad Batch members leave it is pretty interesting. So I like them being able to talk back and forth. Like, she's like, well, this ship, this is my home, all right, okay, this is all that I have, and I'm like, and it's still more than a lot of other people in the galaxy right now, which is pretty cool and interesting. So what do you guys think of that conversation that they had together in the ship?
That was their I think that was kind of his way of being like, like, she's not that different from me. And then Omega kind of saw it as, well, I never really had a home. I've been traveling all this time. My only home was Camino, but ever since then I've been on the run. So I think that kind of makes her miss Camino in a way. But I also like how she's getting more encounters with kids that are pretty much around her age, because she doesn't have that experience of being a kid. So I think when she had the chance to kind of hang out with Gunji, and then you had the first season where she met the kids of Cut. And like that was Hera. So it's just like I love that. And Hera too. And there's different elements of having a childhood in small ways coming to her by meeting other kids around her age. And I think that's also great for her character, because she's so used to kind of being a loner, and then she joined the Bad Batch, and then she's used to being the youngest and not really, kind of dealing people with her age, even though she's older than them. And it doesn't like, but because the cloning process, they're like 3 years old, right? And then like she's like at the actual age of 10. So I think seeing kids around her actual age definitely helps her character development.
Yeah, we're seeing like the evolution of her innocence in all of these interactions. Especially in this specific one, we see her give rations to the kid. She's like, hey, here, have this. He's like, why are you giving it to me? She's like, well, you're helping us. It's an even given trade. She's a very like high morals person, especially raised in like this turmoil of the galaxy. So we really are seeing that innocence, but also coupled with her growing, everything she's able to do with the batch. She's given more responsibility. I mean, Hunter let her go alone to watch this kid with absolutely no supervision from another batch member, which he wouldn't even let Omega watch the ship alone when they were hunting in the mines with no one else, like no one around them. She wouldn't let her do that. So that was amazing to see kind of the evolution of what she's doing with the batch and the roles she's being given within the batch, but also keeping her innocence at almost a constant. It's a really nice dynamic to see.
It's interesting. I wonder where her character is going to end up. Like, if she splits off and does her own thing kind of thing, or we're going to find out something that's pretty important in the future. I don't know. Her character and where it's going has me interested.
Yeah.
Continuing on with the episode, they basically get well, after they have a whole conversation about how like hey, you realize you've been lied to. Basically, the whole realization comes through. Continuing on, then the whole like leader ends up coming through and being like, all right, we're gonna basically throw you off into the hot steam, and then yeah. So what did you guys think of these whole? I love these shots in this sequence of like looking over into like the hot steam lava stuff. So I was like, that's really cool. What'd you think of that scene, Colin?
I don't know. I just I miss. Yeah, okay, actually, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I lost my complete train of thought. Can you repeat it again?
So we're on
I was just thinking about Crosshair. I'm sorry.
We're on the bridge scene of where the kid basically has to stand up and be like, look, man, like we've been working like crazy, and you're telling me that like you've been tricking us and duping us this whole time. And they're about to push like Omega off into the steam. I was like, the shots on that, I was like, wow, it's really, really pretty. I really like them.
I was low-key hoping that someone would have a sharp object where they could cut the bridge in half and then the bridge would snap and then like they would do the whole thing. But that was just a pipe dream of mine. Again, I loved the whole rope bridge type thing because we saw that in the first season of the show that just came out this year. And in the end of last year, called Willow. There was the whole. Did you guys watch that show or no?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, in that show, they also kind of have like a mine shaft type thing. And what? I'm just trying to listen. There wasn't that much that happened in this episode, so I'm pulling different elements and different things.
No, I like your when you relate to something and then you're like, all right, here we go. At least it's Lucasfilm. Then boom, 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 boom.
Right. Because of because just anything that has that tie into different projects. I mean, I'm like a broken record. Is very, very cool to me. So and happening in this animation style is also great, and I love how it's not just a force thing; like it actually has to do something with the plot. So I also not Lucasfilm. It reminded me of the Hobbit, of the Goblin King, like of that scene. No, okay. But yeah, so no, I think it's cool that we're pulling stuff from different elements, but I like from different projects and stuff. Again, that's there wasn't that much that happened this episode, so I'm just trying to relate, but that's just me.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen towards the future after, because I mean, we have the whole big captain guy get fall into the hot steam lava as well after Omega has been rescued. It is interesting seeing how Omega has really just been in these like last few episodes, especially, is just coming into her own and being very confident in everything that she does. So I think that's really cool. Interesting to see where it's going to be left off here. What do you guys think of this ending piece?
I definitely feel like we're seeing that kid again. Almost 100%. I don't know like what the context is going to be for them needing a thief. Yeah, like that's the part that's more interesting to me than seeing him again.
That's fair.
Do we think this is the moment that we were talking about where Sid betrays them? Like, do we think that this was the moment that's going to anger them, where they go back and they're like, "Hey, we're like done with you and everything"?
Well, imagine if that never comes.
Imagine if that's like season 5 of the Bad Batch.
I would like to think that was the main idea of this episode of where it kind of reminded the Bad Batch that there is still good to do in the galaxy, and then more than just to survive. And then that's how maybe they kind of leave Sid, and then they go to Echo, and then they kind of do the clone rebellion that we've been talking about for like these, past couple of weeks. Because to me, this episode was kind of like, it was just there. It didn't really help with the plot for me. And it was kind of boring, unfortunately. Like I love the Bad Batch, but I just feel like these past couple episodes just haven't been really plot driven. And it's just been, kind of, I'm just trying to think of the term, like
filler.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like using the word filler.
I think of it's like a nothing burger. Like, it's still a burger. There's still stuff there. It's still something to chew on. But in the end, you don't leave being fulfilled.
Yeah. I mean, and I know everyone can tell just by how I felt about this episode, but I don't know. I didn't really connect to it. I thought, as great as it was to get some character development, it was not comparable on the greatness level as season 1, where it was mainly plot driven and there's only maybe like a filler episode here and there. But ever since episode 1, 2, and 3, and then you had the mid-season finale where you had them going Coruscant, those are the real plot driven episodes. Other than that, we haven't really got anything major except some kind of side quest missions. So I hope going into next week that they actually but go back into the actual plot, and they get mad at Sid and they end up leaving her, and they end up finding Echo and Cody, and maybe Crosshair kind of gets a wind of where they're at and they're alive and stuff like that. Like, I mean, well, he knows that they're alive, but like I don't know. I just want them to kind of get back on course, because right now they're like straying away from it, in my opinion.
I have probably the strongest feeling I've had in a long time that next week is going to be about Crosshair.
I really hope
Baby
so.
Cody, but
do you know what it's called? The next episode's called?
I haven't pulled it. It's called Metamorphosis.
Okay.
So Metamorphosis, It has a very, I can't see that name being applied to the Batch right now. And like looking at the episodes and like the titles, you can kind of understand like where they were coming from and all that stuff. So also a big thing tipping for me is the third episode was the Crosshair Cody. This would be the third episode following the mid-season finale, following the halfway point, 9, 10, and now 11 Metamorphosis. So maybe if that's keeping some form of pattern, granted there isn't a pattern, there's been only one episode, but
yeah,
with that possibility, the name Metamorphosis, especially seeing the finale of episode 3 had Crosshair, it really looks like he was thinking over, Cody's gone, what all is this? He was almost reconsidering at a point. So I'm wondering if, I really do think that next episode is going to be back to some of our Imperial boys.
Yeah,
I'm hoping so.
Wait, how many more episodes do we have?
There are only 16 episodes total. So
March
is the last month. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes with the 2-part finale on the 29th of March.
So do you feel like if you had like a consistent little like thing that was placed in this that would end up resolving itself at the end, it would be better for the episodes going on in the future? Like, you could have like all these episodes that are kind of like their own thing, but like, let's say at the end, and then you have like a certain clone talking to them, but we don't know who it is, and you want to know who that is, and then we get more information next episode and more information. Like I feel like a lot of these episodes haven't had a sting for it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to. Part of me is starting to wonder. Like, we're reaching a point when they really got to start connecting everything in the season, like you brought up, Josh. So all the different storylines, all the endings from episode 3 to now this thief kid to all the characters we've seen, the progression with Sid. How is that all going to come together in just the episodes we have left? So, like, I feel like we're going to get a sprinkling of Crosshair, maybe a couple episodes back with the Batch, and then they're going to converge for probably the last 3 episodes. We're going to get the tee up with Tipping Point, setting us up for the finale, and then the 2-part finale is going to knock us out of the park.
Oh yeah, it's interesting to me that we just haven't had that connector that's been going on for now, where it's kind of like back to back. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Building towards the future instead of it just being one based episode, because I feel like that we don't have that hook for the next episodes. Like we all love the Bad Batch, and I would love to see them do everything, like just keep doing these things. But I'm like, hey, we need some juicy meat to like grab onto.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel this almost feels similar to like the way this is ending out. It almost feels similar to how Book of Boba was paced and how it was spread out. Like we're about to get the Din episode, be that Crosshair, more clones, and then go back to what we've been having, more Bad Batch, and then we're going to finish with everything converging at the end. Whereas it didn't feel connected at all for a majority of the season, and then boom, it's all there, and almost a little bit too ham-fisted at the end.
I also feel like that doesn't happen. It's hard to do 16 episodes with the exact same characters every episode, and I feel like that's one of the issues that they're dealing or coming up with.
Yeah, because Clone Wars at least had that benefit. Wars. They could hop between characters and story arcs, and 2-3 episodes, they can pack it with so much. I really did enjoy at the start of this season when they split up the batch. Like we had an episode without Hunter and Echo, so we got to get those kind of different dynamic feelings in episodes. But now we're kind of, it feels like we're, aside from the mid-season finale, we really are kind of feeling like, we've been with these group for so long. Let's find something else, something new, something interesting that's not just popping them in a story, but having the story take them along.
Because I mean, if we had a full if we had an episode come that was just Echo's side, I'd be like, great, this is completely different. It's something fun. We still have the Bad Batch doing their own thing. I'd also like an episode where you have let's go do something, and we see it from the perspective of one half of the Bad Batch group versus the other half. And you basically tell the same story, and then both the episodes get to converge at one point. So I think I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, agreed.
So what do you think, Colin? What do you think of this the string of episodes that we've had so far?
I kind of going back to what also Josh said is that is the biggest difference between the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch, and the Book of Boba Fett. In the Book of Boba Fett, we were getting the origin of, his story from the end of Return of the Jedi all the way to present. So that to me was plot driven. There really wasn't any side quest type episodes except the episodes with Mando, which you honestly consider that season 3 of Mando if you wanted to, with how much content that we got in those episodes. But and then for Clone Wars, the biggest difference between the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch is that the Clone Wars is a variety of different Jedi, different clones, different characters that are during that era. And for the Bad Batch, the main focus is the characters of the group of the Bad Batch. So I think that having side quests and everything in the Bad Batch, it's fine, but I don't think the kind of again, I don't like using the word, but the filler episodes in the Clone Wars compared to the Bad Batch, I feel like it's unnecessary because you take those episodes out of the filler episodes, of this season, would not really affect the plot at all. Some of the filler episodes in the Clone Wars, you could argue saying that it could affect the Clone Wars if you took them out. So that's why I'm, kind of iffy on these kind of side quest type of episodes.
To be fair for me, I think that they've done a good job at making Omega a better character. Because I can say for sure, in the last season, I did not like her character nearly as much as I like her now. In comparison wise, if I say that the really good things that have happened out of this newest season, I'm like, Omega is a lot better. The dynamic is changing. I like anything to do with Crosshairs. It's normal. But I mean, we definitely need that juicy burger soon. Which next episode, hopefully, I can say.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's really it for the Bad Batch. Let's dive into this small, show that's debuting next week called The Mandalorian. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I'm so excited. The first episode, the main rumor, I guess, right now is that the runtime for episode 1, season 3 is going to be 35 minutes. That's including the credits. That is the shortest.
Are they just doing one episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. And that is the shortest runtime for a first episode of The Mandalorian.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, season 2's opening was like an hour, right?
Right, and that was also directed by Jon Favreau, so that felt like a movie, bro. Like,
yeah, it did.
That was nuts.
I have the highest praise. I remember that came out like back when I was dorming, and so like everyone got together, like swarmed the den, and everyone just crammed around this TV. And I watched it at least 5 times with 5 groups of people, and every single time it was like movie reactions for Endgame on levels of stuff.
I just don't think, man. I mean, I just remember sitting there, and it got to the part where they actually were getting where the crate dragon actually comes out, and then the screen changes, and you're like, wait, yeah, it's like, wait, what? And then it just goes like just full out battle mode, and I was, yeah, and I cannot wait for more scenes like that in this season. I know some people are kind of they're not as hype for the season, which I find very interesting.
I might be one of those people. I feel like I'm cautiously optimistic. Mandalorian season 1 to me was almost a perfect season of TV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
about as close to perfect as you can get from me. I loved the Western. I loved the samurai. I'm a big Western fan, big noir fan. So those things really clicked well for me. Season 2 started to get a bit almost too cameo-ish for me. I feel like it lost a little bit of the charm that season 1 personally for me had. So I guess my biggest fear is that season 3 is going to feel. I want it to feel big, but also still feel very personal to Din. And so I'm hoping that we keep Din's story at a forefront here, and keep his relationship with the characters at a very high point, because I think that's going to make it a lot better.
I feel like the crutch they have currently, because like the first season was kind of like, as they said, it was like you have the toys that your older brother didn't want to play with, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely got that vibe from it. It was all absolutely. These new things, and like things that were always in the background, but now we brought them to the foreground. Like it was really cool, and everything was just so new, and everything was back to back awesome. And then you get like season 2 where it's kind of like, oh, cameo character, great to see you, I love it. And they kept making Grogu a bigger character, and it has me worried towards the future where you don't have like Mandalorian being the main focus anymore. It's going to be all on Grogu, and I'm kind of like, I like Grogu's story, but I feel like he only really works if he is like, off to the side, and he can come in and you have like an episode focused around his stuff. But then it's kind of like, I don't want it to be the like Din's whole crutch. I don't, because we had episodes in season 1 where he like Grogu wasn't around at all, and they were still awesome episodes.
Yeah, so, like the heist, the jailbreak episodes.
Yeah.
Immediately comes to mind. Season 2, continue with the analogy you said. Season 1 was like you got to play with the discarded toys. Season 2 was when your brother's like, "Oh, that's a cool story you got there. Mind if I bring some of my good toys into the play? Like, I had a good thing going on over here."
Yeah. That's my biggest worry. That's why I'm not as super hyped. I feel like we'll get some really cool reveals and everything. I just know how much they are banking on Grogu right now, and there's points where I'm kind of like, I want him kind of off to the side.
I know a lot of people have a lot of theories about who saved him from the temple, and I'm telling you right now, if it's not Mace Windu, I feel like a lot of people will kind of lose interest. Because for me, I wouldn't mind if it was Quinlan Voss or someone else. Do you think it's just going to be a random Jedi? Do you think it's going to be a new character that they're going to introduce? Or do you think it's going to be someone that we know?
I wouldn't know. I think it's going to, I wouldn't doubt it'd be like a new character for them. if it's Mace Windu, yeah, people would lose their minds, which it would be really cool to see. But then you get more questions of like, where is he? What is he doing now?
When it becomes a known character like that, it almost draw attention away from the Mandalore story arc.
Right.
Introducing something like that big of a bombshell to a flashback scene inherently.
I've been saying that the only way that I think bringing Mace Windu back would work would be if they ended up having him come back in a way and being like, oh my gosh, where have you been all this time? Blah, blah, blah. And then Mace Windu comes back in the picture and they actually explain it in a good way of why he's been off the radar and stuff like that. And if he kind of fell towards the dark side and was kind of dealing with that, that would be pretty cool. And then maybe they canonize the Gray Jedi because they stopped making that canon a while ago. But I could definitely see Mace Windu kind of being the lines of that, but also bring him back to be the main antagonist for Boba Fett in season 2 of the book.
That is a cool theory. I like them not liking each other. That'd be pretty cool to see. The thing I think I'm worried about is just Grogu. The normal average viewer could care less about Star Wars. They just like you've got two things. You got Grogu and you have the Mandalorian. So I feel like those two things can be easily pushed, and knowing the way things have been going currently, I feel like that is something that they're going to push like crazy. I don't want Grogu to outstay his welcome, and he's on the cusp for me right now. So I'm not your average Star Wars nerd. I love Star Wars. It's a passion of mine. Reveals are great for me, but I don't know. I want new stuff in Star Wars. I think that's why my passion. I love all of Fallen Order, because it's just new stuff after new stuff after new stuff in a world that we love. So I want new things for this, and that would be great. We're going to get more information on Mandalore, and hopefully there's some cool stuff. That's what I'm saying.
I'm still very intrigued and interested and excited to see what role Christopher Lloyd is going to have. Because the big rumor right now is that he's playing a Mandalorian elder. So he's just been on the planet Mandalore, just kind of chilling or something like that. That's the main theory. I don't want him to play. I mean, because you
want his face and not him being a droid or
I want him to play MODOK in the Star Wars universe. Big head Christopher Lloyd.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we get one great Scott out of him, I'm fine. I'm good. I would be content. I doubt we will. I know that's another pipe dream, but I still think that would be so funny. I hope
the new things they introduce don't affect the show's longevity. I feel like new things are great, but 5 years down the road, why would I watch something if really all it did is just introduce new things? I really hope that the story itself is able to hold its own with the new things, so that it's still fun to go back and watch it for the story rather than just watch it for the cameos and for the new things it introduces.
So speaking of new things, to me, the point of Mando of this show is that it's going to be going into the sequels, right? So they have to tie it into the sequels in some way.
How did Palpatine return? All right.
I don't know if we'll get to that extent.
Well, it's funny to me that we're getting to this point where we as Star Wars nerds can connect so much to this sequel stuff that it does make me think that they are just pushing to try and answer this question. Because I swear that is this giant burning question over all of Star Wars right now, where everyone has to put in their own 2 cents to be this could have happened, and this is an element to how it happens. It can't just be one line.
Well, so they did answer how he returned, but they did it off screen, which is where as soon as the second Death Star blew up, he used some Sith magic and trained himself to put his force essence into a different body, and that was the whole point of him being obsessed with clones.
So it's a different body. Is it a cloned body? If it's a cloned body, Like, were they doing experiments to make it so that it could still be force sensitive? How,
right.
Whereas, like, this is the kind of thing, because we get the whole, like, Snoke thing in season 2 with the whole Snoke music. We get, like, Omega being, like, maybe force sensitive, and that's the reason that she's, like, around or was created so they could get, like, Metachlorians cloned.
Yeah.
That's why we took, like, the leader off to go and clone some other stuff. We got, like, a whole bunch of Camino stuff going on in this next season. I'm like, there's so much random stuff that we have going on right now that I'm like, interesting. Like, I feel like we're trying to explain one thing in Star Wars, and I'm like, okay, cool, I guess.
Like, yeah, and the fact that season 4 is already written kind of makes me think that we're gonna leave it on a cliffhanger.
It's cool. Like, I like that we have something set in stone, because that is the reason that we have issues towards the future, is if we don't keep it here and go, this is how it's going to be. Here's my beginning. Here's my end. We're going to get here. Let's, like, write everything in the middle. All right,
exactly.
Cool. Which I'm 100% okay with. I don't like when we're going random movie, and then this is random movie, and then this is random movie, because that just ends up having problems towards the future of Star Wars.
That actually happened with season 1 of The Mandalorian, because as soon as 2019 hit and they announced it, people really didn't know exactly where in the timeline it took. So when the first episode happened, people were like, where's Poe? Where's Finn? Where's Rey? Why are there normal stormtroopers there? And not everyone, kind of understood the timeline that took place 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. So they went back in time. And people thought it was going to be a continuation of what we got after The Last Jedi. But the other cool thing is that Dave Filoni has another project that he's working on, and it's not season 2 of Ahsoka. It's going to be something completely different, probably like Skeleton Crew, which I'm very excited for that, because that's going to be like a whole different thing. Most likely it will deal with, Ahsoka, because I think Ahsoka will have a cameo in it, but she's not going to be the main focus of the show. But for his new project, we don't know what the character or, who's it going to be about. In your guys' opinion, what character would you like his show to be about? Do you want
a good bounty hunter character? Show. Yeah. A good bounty hunter show, please.
Are we asking for what we want Dave Filoni to work on, or what in general we want a Star Wars story of?
Well, we don't know what the timeline of the project that he's working on, like of the next Dave Filoni show. Like, we don't know what the show is about. All we know is that he has written it. It's by him, but we don't know the timeline or anything. What character or new character would you like the show to be about?
I want to see. Dave has a wonderful. He does a great job with chronological stories that can also be very set, like an anthology. Like the anthology work, he does amazing work on.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him take over for the Lando show. I think, like, again, individual stories of Billy D telling stories, and then we get flashbacks to Donald Glover going through these tales, kind of romanticized Lando tales through Dave Filoni's lens. I feel like he'd do a great job with that, and we can bring in classic bounty hunters. We could do other things. I feel like that'd be amazing to see. Part of that also is my personal bias in just wanting to see that show, and so hearing that the slightest possibility makes me happy. But I do think David had a very interesting take on the Lando Calrissian character, because he did a very good job with him in Rebels.
Yes, I agree. Now, here's a question which I know will make Josh laugh: is which version of Lando do you like better? Do you like Billy D. Williams, or do you like John
Glover?
So
that's not really the question. I would like be able to say like who does it better. It's a different age. I love young Lando. Like him being super cocky and just like I love money and this is what I do, and being super suave. I love that. And then it's cool seeing how the both portrayals, you can see how in the future he's still got that on him where he's like, yeah, I'm still suave and everything, but like he's older and he's more like mature in the way he does things. But most definitely, I would love to see more Lando stories of a younger Lando. That his stories sound like fun. Him getting out of trouble, him doing things like the way he deals with situations as opposed to Han's situations. They work very well.
Oh, I'd love to see Alden and Jonas come back as well for like maybe an episode, just like another Han and Chewie happen to be on something because they signed a huge contract. They still can just say, "Hey, you're back, by the way," and then they come on in. But yeah, no, I'd love to see that, and also I just love the idea of seeing Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian around a sabacc table, telling these stories that we saw young Lando telling, and then we actually get to see them happen. Like I feel like that'd just be so fun to have like Billy D. Williams narrate Donald Glover's stories. That'd just be so fun.
I'm confused about this question. Do you guys think Gregor is coming back in Skeleton Crew? Are we talking about Clone Commando Gregor that got killed in Rebels? Because he's dead.
I don't think so. I think partly because of that, and also just how Skeleton Crew feels like it's going to be a very separated thing from the galaxy we know.
I would definitely elaborate on that question, Sage, because if you're talking about the clone Gregor, he died in Rebels. But yeah, no, I'm definitely excited for the future of Star Wars. I know a lot of people. I was just talking to a couple of the people that I see a lot, and they were saying that Star Wars is, it's been kind of on the fence, like for like the past couple of years, and it's not what they're used to. And then I keep seeing people, for example, there is All Star Wars. He's a friend of ours. I just saw him post saying that he's not that really excited about this season of The Mandalorian, and that's really weird. Kind of just seeing the hype at Celebration this past year, and then jumping to where we are now. It just doesn't seem like the hype is there for a lot of people, and I just find that very, very intriguing. Like I'm excited. I'm not as excited as I was, for like the past seasons, but I think when the episode actually airs and I'm sitting in front of the TV, I think that feeling will come back.
Honestly, I really feel that the general audience sentiment is kind of like almost against franchises right now. Like, and how it feels like with Marvel, how it feels like, especially after the last couple of shows we had in Star Wars that are okay shows, but they're not living up to the immense hype that people have built up for them. I feel like a lot of franchises are trying to bounce back, and they're gonna have to work very hard to bounce back. His reputation is a very hard thing to rebuild. It's a very hard thing to rebuild. So
I agree.
Yeah, we'll see.
You've also got season 1 of Ahsoka was kind of leaked by Rosario Dawson. I think we were supposed to find out during Celebration, but she said it's supposed to come out during the fall. Which I think that means that we'll probably get Skeleton Crew before that, or we'll end up getting it after during the winter, and that will carry on into next year, which means that we might have a gap in the summer of not having a Star Wars show. Unless they have Acolyte start at the end of this year. But the timeline for Skeleton Crew and Ahsoka is kind of confusing to me because we've seen stuff for Ahsoka already, so we already assumed that Ahsoka would come out before Skeleton Crew. But Skeleton Crew is in post-production right now. So there's a chance that we'll probably get Ahsoka before, but some theories are saying that Skeleton Crew will take place before Ahsoka. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
New stuff for Star Wars, please. That's me. I don't like the continuations when they start wearing out their welcome.
As long as we don't get, like it's right in the plot of the show of Skeleton Crew, things are getting heated. And then all of a sudden you see Mando walk around the corner and you've got Grogu, like strapped to his chest and he's like, all right, let's go. It's like, okay, all right. He just had his season. He made a cameo in Ahsoka. We don't need him to make a cameo in Skeleton Crew because I got a feeling he's gonna pop up in Ahsoka somehow. I just have a feeling. But I'm excited for all these shows. I think that the hype is kind of dim right now, but I think once the show comes out, I think people will definitely kind of get more back on the bandwagon. Because ever since the sequels came out, I think The Mandalorian is what really got people back into Star Wars. I think that's the show that was like, oh my gosh, like it's Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars. It's Dave Filoni, and Dave Filoni worked directly with George Lucas, and I think that's why we all fell in love with The Mandalorian, because I think if someone's going to work on Star Wars, it should be someone that knows George Lucas very well and that worked side by side with him for years. And he did that on the Clone Wars, and Clone Wars was great.
I like him better as a writer than I do as a director, though.
Yeah.
Like, I would much rather him be the person who's writing the Star Wars stories, and then we have, as I've said before, like, I'd love to have different people's takes on Star Wars come in and do their whole directing thing. Especially like with coming off of Andor and how that was directed. I was like, I'd love to see that again.
I think if Mando season 3 sticks the landing, and then Ahsoka, which in my opinion, Ahsoka is the one question mark here. If Ahsoka sticks the landing too, then I think once Andor season 2 comes around, that's when general hype will probably be at its highest. I think give Andor some time so a lot of people watch it, and then give these two shows the ability for people to say, okay, these are really well thought out, very good tales, and then have that lead up, because general hype is connected show to show. Some people won't come into like just one and like, oh, I only watch Book of Boba Fett. I'm only waiting for Book of Boba Fett season 2, and then I'm gonna be super hyped. Like everyone's hyped for a Star Wars show. It's very rare to have someone that's only hyped for one type of it. So almost every single show really needs to stick the landing, and if they do, I think Andor season 2 is when stuff is really gonna pop off.
I think that the show Acolyte will also do the same as well, because there's no way that the Mandalorian would be able to make a cameo in that.
Yeah.
There's it's going to be its own story. It's taken during the High Republic, which right now everything we know about the High Republic is mainly from the novels and the comics and everything that have come out. So it's going to be great to have a show that's that's going to be taking place in that era.
Yeah.
And like Josh was saying, new Star Wars and just more Star Wars in general is fantastic, but the newer it is, it's going to be able to draw in a new audience, because it's like, okay, wait, so it has nothing to do with the Skywalkers, it has nothing to do with the Mandalorian, it takes place before that, and I don't need to know anything about Luke Skywalker or anything. Count me in, because the biggest thing right now is with all these shows in the Skywalker saga, it's all connected, right? So if you're watching, if you're watching The Mandalorian and you see Ahsoka pop up for the first time, you're like, wait, who's that? And they're like, oh, well, Ahsoka's from this animated show. And you're like, wait, I got to watch that. And then it's just like a bunch of seasons, and not everyone has the attention span to do that.
Yeah.
And I think the great thing with the Acolyte is that it's going to be taking place in a whole different timeline where it has nothing to do with Skywalkers, and people can just enjoy it without kind of questioning things and being like, wait, so that character did this in this show and then in that movie. And then on top of that, this is also kind of a great way to not have that limit of staying in the Skywalker timeline. It can do whatever, as long as it doesn't, say like this right here is the great grandfather of Shmi Skywalker or something like that. I'm like, I don't want any of that. Don't deal with the Skywalkers. Leave them out of it. Don't have them in the new movies at all either, coming out in 2025. I don't want to see any Skywalker name. Rey, I love you, but no. I don't want Rey Skywalker, Finn, Poe. I want a new story. I want a new timeline. I want Star Wars not to reinvent itself, but to, kind of give us a fresh new look on Star Wars. And I think the Acolyte is the best way to go in the right direction, because it's not going to have to deal with any of that.
Question for you then, because I totally agree with having it branch out and have new stories in new areas, using the galaxy almost as a template to build stories rather than feel confined by it. This is an idea I've had for a long time, and I haven't had any time to flesh it out. But what would you feel about an Andor-styled show, maybe written by Dave Filoni, maybe his new show, where we have like the story of Echo Base, where it leads up from a soldier's perspective, and it ends with the Battle of Hoth, and we get nothing of like the classic characters, like they're just maybe passing words in a story, but we kind of get an in the trenches feel of like the creation of Echo Base running from after
like a World War II movie.
I would love that. Cool. That's honestly what Rogue One kind of was.
Yeah.
But having it where like you see a character fighting in the trenches, kind of something on the lines
the ragtag bunch of soldiers,
right?
What you saw in like Solo.
Yeah, maybe that a little bit of Rogue One, some that Andor kind of feel, that gritty, that rebellion, that hate against the Empire.
I would love a Star Wars show that is like the Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan, but it's Star Wars. Like that would be really, really, really cool to see.
I think seeing that in Hoth 2 would be so interesting because we know it's a losing battle.
Yeah.
But seeing how they lose is so important, especially in the trenches. So I think that'd be very, very interesting to see.
And that would also give you a different perspective on all the scenes that we see in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
I'm all on board.
See what our characters ran away from. Yeah. No, that'd be really fun.
Yeah. So to end today's episode, Star Wars Celebration happening this year. We're excited, but it's not happening next year. It's happening in 2025. So you're skipping a year, almost 2 years until the next one. How do we feel about that? I know Token and I are very excited to go to the one happening this year. But I know there was a lot of speculation it was going to happen in Orlando next year. How do we feel about it kind of skipping a year? Because they've done that in the past.
They have. I'm going to miss my friends, but honestly, like as someone who's in college right now, I'll be out of college by then. I won't have to worry about classes. Like me personally, almost more than okay with it. I get to worry about it a lot less and fitting it in my schedule and kind of give it some time for these shows and the new trilogy of movies, possibly. Let those speak for themselves. Let those bring people in. I much prefer them saying, you know what, we maybe don't have enough material out there to have enough to have a celebration we're proud to host. Let's wait. Let's put it off. Let's do it at a time when we really know it can be something big and important that celebration should be. I think that speaks volumes for the care that they have in celebration. I think,
I mean, honestly, I'm with you because I think 2025 will be the year where it felt like Force Awakens was coming out. Like, I think that's where we'll get that Star Wars hype back because we haven't gone back to the big screen since 2019 for Star Wars. And as much as, everyone's got their own opinions about the sequels, but you have to admit the hype for the movies were fantastic. And I remember watching that first trailer for Force Awakens and just everyone in the theater just flipping out of just seeing the Falcon do a backflip on the desert planet and it's getting chased by, TIE fighters and then Star Wars. Yeah. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, cool. And then you have the trailer for The Last Jedi. I remember the hype for that and Rise of Skywalker. Like it's great to have these shows, but Star Wars belongs on the big screen. It belongs in the cinema. And that's where all the hype was. And for all the toy sales and all that stuff, like every Force Friday that we've had, I just remember just people lining up outside of the stores, the line going down for miles. For the Force Friday for The Last Jedi, I went to a Target in Georgia around DragonCon. and I won this 4-foot giant porg in a raffle, and I just remember like I don't even know what this is, but I'm excited about it, and I got that because it was from the movie, which that's a whole other story, by the way, because I didn't live in Georgia, I lived in Michigan, so I had to get that home, which I'll tell at a different time.
Lord.
But yeah, so no, I really think that Star Wars belongs. Like I love it. I love the TV shows. Don't get me wrong, but the real hype is on the big screen, and I'm excited for it to come back in 2025. I'm just curious of what the story is going to be.
The shortness of time between streaming shows, I think, is honestly like been a really big detriment to franchises in general. Like the timing between Last Jedi and Solo is a known factor for hurting Solo.
Yeah,
and then sometimes there's less time between shows than there was even time between Last Jedi and Solo. So I think that I totally agree. Having that silver screen is a big factor for hype.
I think the other, which we've talked about this, but the other reason why Solo didn't do well is because people were still upset about The Last Jedi.
Upset about The Last Jedi.
And that was another big thing, too.
Production issues behind the scenes that got out, and the trailer only dropped like 2 months ahead of time.
We were supposed to get Tag and Bink in Solo, and we didn't.
That's a good deleted scene. Like, I can see why they deleted it, but it would have been fun to have them.
Yeah, but yeah. So, yeah, no, I know this year's going to be crazy for Star Wars. We still have a lot of projects coming up. On May 4th, we're getting the new Jedi Adventure, Young Jedi Adventures, which is a kid's show, but still it's a kind of a new story happening in the High Republic era. And then you have the show Vision Season 2. That's going to be awesome. We'll probably see a bunch of stuff about that at Star Wars Celebration. Again, Star Wars Celebration is happening this year. It's going to be happening April 7th through the 10th in London. Josh and I are excited. There's so much content that's going to be happening there. And also, it's in London. It's going to be awesome. So thank you, everyone, for listening and just kind of taking this journey with us. Again, sorry if I wasn't too hyped up about this episode of The Bad Batch. I was just like, it just wasn't my cup of tea this week, but I got a feeling. Yeah, I got a feeling that next week it will be. We're on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We're on Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're also on Patreon. For everyone that is on our Patreon, thank you so much. We have fun putting exclusive content on there. A new interview that David just did recently was with the actress who played the Jawa Tika in Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's the Jawa that gives Obi-Wan the parts in the first episode. So David sat down with her, had a wonderful interview. It's exclusive on our Patreon. Go and check it out. We're also on TikTok. Search Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We have a Gmail, Star Wars Stuff Podcast @gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Star Wars Stuff Group, and Star Wars Stuff Podcast page. Please go on Apple Podcast. Give us a review. If it's all about David, that's totally fine. And we also have our own website, stuffpodcastnetwork.com. That also gives you a link to everything, all of our streaming services that we're on. Please go check it out. Twitch, Star Wars Stuff Gaming. We have a fun group that does all of our Twitch stuff, so please go and check it out. I'm actually preparing to do a full campaign playback of the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 and then Republic Commandos as well. So yeah, very, very exciting stuff in there. If you want to follow Josh cloning around, where can they follow you?
Instagram, cloning_around. That's maybe not the most active guy, but you can find me there.
There you go. He has some great stuff on there. Again, we would not be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you, everyone, for listening. From myself, Josh, and Josh, may the Force be with you always.